being lonely with yourself is better than being accompanied with people who don't have your best interest in hand. I just believe that at a deep, deep level. And that's through my experience and what I've seen from other people.
If you're staying in the old ideas, the old persons, the old things, all of that, that's a choice. You're choosing to stay stuck. And I highly recommend you stop that choice.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, Next Level You weekly live podcast for week number 79. We're going to talk about letting go of what's no longer serving you. I have said this many times. So being an entrepreneur is amazing. Being in self-improvement is amazing. You learn so many things, but the thing that I have learned the most about is definitely myself. And a huge part of that has been figuring out what is good for me, what is better for me, what's best for me, and what's just not serving me. I know Alan can speak to that as well. But Alan asked what my intention was before we jumped on here, and it's to facilitate some sort of change to get you to question, you know what, is this person, place, idea, feeling, thought, action really serving me to the highest level? Or have I been convincing myself that it is and just been doing it wrong?
So Kevin and I prepped before this, and like I said, he has 5 things, I have 5 things we're going to go through. But the first thing that I want to say, and I talked to Kevin about this prior to this, I actually don't think I've ever been very good at this. Letting go of the persons, places, things, and ideas that are no longer serving you, in my opinion, is one of the hardest things in the world. And whether you're watching a movie or reading a book, everybody has a story. And usually, and you've heard me talk about this, usually the hero of the story starts out as a victim being suppressed by a villain. The villain can be society, or it can be a character, or it can be a combination of both. And then usually a guide shows up, some form of a coach or a mentor or a guide. And usually there's some sort of traumatic event. And during that traumatic event, it really wakes up the victim to realize they're being suppressed, and then they become the hero of their own story. And so what Kevin and I want to help you do is realize that every single hero in all those books and movies and biographies all had to let go of the old world. Whether it was Luke Skywalker having to leave, I think it was Tatooine or whatever, you always have to let go of the old world in order to embark on this new journey. I talk about The Hobbit often. I like that movie a lot. And Bilbo Baggins, the main character in that movie, when Gandalf came and basically they wanted to go on that adventure to Lonely Mountain, Bilbo's character had to leave the Shire. The Shire was all he had ever known. You know, yes, I'm going down that road.
I honestly, I can see it in the future, Alan. There's going to be a podcast where you do like a play-by-play of movies. I can see it.
I appreciate it. So he had to leave the old world, the Shire, in order to embark on this journey. It's called a grand adventure. And all of us are doing that. We have to leave the old persons, places, things, and ideas that are no longer serving us if we want to embark on that epic journey of the new persons, places, things, and ideas. So very last thing I'll say before I let Kevin go here is life is about your nouns. What are your nouns? What is a noun? We all learned in grade school, a noun is a person, a place, a thing, or an idea. And I'm going to give you an example of each, and Kevin is as well. And so, that's really what I want to set this stage up with. Number one, I am not good at this. I've not been good at this, but it was me admitting that to myself after 26 and Kevin after 26 when he had that suicidal moment. It's when we really woke up to the fact of like, listen, if we don't let go of what's not serving us, we're not going to be able to achieve our dreams. And that goes for you as well. So let's admit it. That's my main intention. Everyone out there, let's admit it's hard to let go of these old people, these old places, these old things, these old ideas, these old habits. It's really challenging to do that, but we have to do that if we want to achieve our dreams. And that's just the fact.
I appreciate your honesty in admitting that's probably not a strength of yours. I think it's important, self-awareness. I think for me, it probably is somewhat of a strength.
Yeah.
And that leads into my first point. I was on the phone with somebody a couple of months ago, and we were talking about this. We were talking about the fear, the scarcity, the conflict, the friction when it comes to leaving people behind, because sometimes people aren't serving us at the level that we think. And this is what I said to that person. I said, I think you need to understand that you're not afraid to lose love. You're afraid to lose people. We have people in our lives that are kind of, and I mean this with all the love in the world, they're just kind of placeholders. There's some people probably in your life right now who are just taking up space, You're afraid to let them go completely because when you do, you have that perceived aloneness. When in reality, if those people aren't serving you at the highest level, you're actually doing yourself a disservice by not letting them go. I can't tell you how many masterminds Alan and I have been in, and they're with amazing people. We decided, honestly, this isn't a 10 out of 10 for us anymore. Like, we have to move on. And that created the void, that created the opportunity for somebody more aligned to fill that space. My relationship with Taryn was the same thing. I had a relationship previous to that where the person I was with was just kind of holding space. And I had to be honest with that person and with myself. And that was difficult, but that allowed me to fill that gap with the most amazing love I've ever experienced. So I do believe it's one of those things that everything we talk about here today, the people, the places, the ideas, the thoughts, the feelings, whatever it may be, a lot of them are just temporary placeholders. And rather than being completely quote unquote alone, we'd rather have something familiar, even if that familiarity isn't serving us at the highest level. Even if that familiarity is holding us back in some way, shape, or form, we've gone through our lives and we've convinced ourselves that we need this person in our life. Because if we don't have that person, we're going to be lonely. But I genuinely believe being lonely with yourself is better than being accompanied with people who don't have your best interest in hand. I just believe that at a deep, deep level. And that's through my experience and what I've seen from other people. But understand that. Really sit down and say, like, this person. So, I could do it. Alan, Taryn, Bianca, Emilia, Amy, the team, everybody. Like, are these people serving me, or are they just holding a spot? Are they just in my life because I want to say I have X amount of people in my life? And just circling back really quickly to the very beginning here, I do believe this is one of my strengths, and I'm grateful for that, because I've never really based my friendships on how many friends I've had. It's always been the quality of the friendship. So if you find yourself saying, well, I have X amount of friends, I would question and say, well, how quality are those relationships? Quality over quantity.
There was a time in my life where I actually thought that I would end up being either the best man or in the wedding party of 11 different weddings. And I remember asking myself, like, how am I going to do that? And now it's interesting because I don't think that I'm going to be the best man or in the wedding party of any weddings. And why do I say that? The first point that I have written down here is persons. Again, persons, places, things, and ideas. Persons. This is my kryptonite. I have a heart for people. I believe in people so deeply. And anyone who knows me well will know that. And if you're out there right now listening, like, I believe in you. And that's a huge, huge, huge strength. But I think it also comes with a weakness. Every strength comes with a weakness. Self-confidence is the strength. The weakness is arrogance, right? And so humility is the strength. Not giving yourself credit where it's due is the weakness. So my believing in myself and others is a huge strength, and I acknowledge that. But the weakness that comes with it, okay, is that I'll believe in people and their potential so much that I actually will allow it to hold me back. I'll pour over and over and over again into someone who, quite frankly, doesn't really want to maximize their potential. And so the first point that I want everyone to write down if they're not driving is persons. Who are the people in my life that are not supporting the person I aspire to be? Okay? We all have three parts of us. We have our past self, we have our present self, and we have our future self. Most people love you for your past self and your present self, not for your future self. And that is the problem. So you need to ask yourself, not does this person love me? That's too shallow. Does this person love me for who I aspire to be? Not does this person support me? Does this person support who I aspire to be? And more importantly, if you want to go one layer deeper, is this person capable of supporting the person I aspire to be? I remember Kevin and I were talking probably like a year ago now. And I remember we were talking about how we are committed to having the most successful holistic self-improvement podcast in history in terms of positive impact. Now, if we're committed to that, 10 out of 10, all in, committed to that mission, if one of our old friends from high school invites us to dinner and David Meltzer also invites us to dinner, David Meltzer, for those of you who don't know, is a very, very, very successful podcaster in this industry. We actually have to choose Dave. If we're truly committed to having the most successful podcast that we can possibly have, we actually have to choose Dave. Okay? Because the other choice is not as aligned with who we aspire to be. That's a tough truth, but one that we all need to understand. So ask yourself, if you're out there, are the people in my life supporting and what's best for who I aspire to be, not just do they love me for who I am today?
Fire.
Thank you, brother.
Fire. Alan's talking about alignment, and he said a couple times the 10 out of 10. One of the things that you need to get crystal clear on is what are your actual 10s? Like really sit down. And I've had a bunch of times in my life where I had to ask myself that question and I didn't like the answer. And usually when you don't like the answer, that's because you have to make some sort of change. I remember, I don't know, however many years ago it was, but I was in and I call it a situationship. There's your first hint that it wasn't a 10 out of 10 for me. It was a situationship. And I remember talking to a bunch of my friends and I was like, honestly, I'm coming up, I'm going to be 30 in a couple of years. And I really want to settle down. And this situationship, this relationship I'm in is just not that for me. And the second I said that, that was me telling myself, this isn't a 10 out of 10 for me. So now I have to do something about it. So I had to end that. And again, I'm blessed because now I'm engaged with Taryn, and I'm so very grateful for that. And that never would have happened. But at the time, it's super difficult. Like that is super difficult. There was another time where Alan and I were talking and it became a running joke of, I'm going to do a call today and then I'm going to play 6 hours of Call of Duty. The reason, and for those of you who don't know, Call of Duty is a PlayStation game, Xbox game. You can play with people across the world. It's pretty awesome, honestly, all things
Definitely
considered.
awesome.
But the reason it became a joke is because I kind of was playing it like several hours a day, 4 or 5 hours a day at one point. And I had to have that really difficult conversation with myself of, okay, you claim to be this next level podcaster and this coach and this peak performer and all of these things, but here you are playing video games in between your calls. And again, there's nothing wrong with video games. There's a lot of people who make a very, very good living on them, but that's not the life that I have chosen. And I had to say, is this a 10? Like, is what I'm doing a 10 out of 10? And it wasn't. It wasn't serving me at the level that I needed to serve me at. And I literally got rid of the console. I put it under the TV and I don't play it anymore. The only time I play it is when I go hang out with my buddy Matt, and it's predetermined that we're going to play that for however many hours. That's going to be our R&R. Sometimes realizing what your 10s out of 10s are is one of the more difficult things because you have to be very honest with yourself. And if you come to the conclusion that, okay, this thing, this person, this place, this idea is no longer serving me, since you have that new level of awareness, you then have to take responsibility. And I think a lot of us are afraid to admit that this isn't serving me because then you have to change moving forward. And that's difficult and that sucks. But it's not as difficult or sucky as continuing with living out of alignment and then winding up somewhere you didn't want to be in a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. The beauty of this is when you sit down and say, okay, what are my 10 out of 10s? And when I say a 10 out of 10, I mean, what is fully aligned for you? What are the things that are serving you at the highest level? When you get crystal clear on those, you can double and triple down on those. And that's going to bring you closer to your goals than you believe. And then you can start to spend less time, less feelings, less emotions, less energy on the things that aren't as aligned. And you'll see the progress that's made there with that little change is quite a lot, honestly. It's difficult. Everything we're going to talk about here today is difficult, but sometimes it's the most difficult things that bring the most progress. And I think it's just important that we face that mirror, especially, I don't want to say even the difficult ones. I think we have to face especially the difficult ones because those are the ones that unlock the doors.
Remember, all the gold is buried where it's hardest to dig. That's super, super important to understand. One other thing that I want to reframe here real quick. The title of this is letting go of what's no longer serving you. I think I want to shift it to letting go of what's no longer serving your highest self. Because every person, place, thing, and idea in your life is serving you in some way. James Clear talks about this. He says smoking actually serves you in certain ways. It gives you a nicotine high. It allows you to breathe deeply. You get to socialize with friends. Just because cigarettes are serving you in some ways doesn't mean they're serving your highest self. There's a big difference between something serving some part of you and serving your highest self. So I want to reframe that real quick. The second thing that I had written down here, the first one was persons. The second one is places. There's so many ways that I can go with this. As a matter of fact, Emilia, Bianca, myself, and Kevin last week, you might know this, we're in Florida. We were at a conference called the Real Deal event. And it wasn't a 10 out of 10 for us. It was a great event in its own right. And I'm not going to judge the people who put it on. I'm not going to be overly critical. But the truth of the matter is it wasn't a 10 out of 10 for us. As a matter of fact, so much, in fact, that we didn't even go the third day. I remember Kevin and I were in Colorado. We were at an event. And every single evening, the whole group, it was a very intimate event. I think it was like 30 people in a room, deep dive, branding, marketing, limiting beliefs, peak performance. We actually had Lauren Johnson on the podcast. We've also had Nick. They were at the event speaking. Awesome, awesome event. Tight-knit group, intimate group. And they all went to dinner in the evenings. That was not a 10 out of 10 for Kevin and I. The 10 out of 10 for Kevin and I, because fitness is such a core value and a core aspiration of ours, was to go to the gym. And Kevin and I, and let's be honest, we know for a fact that other people don't aspire to the same level of fitness goals that Kevin and I do, because if they did, the 10 out of 10 for them would have been going to the gym. And so the truth of the matter is when we say letting go of something not serving you, the first thing is persons, most important. Second is places. Okay, that event was serving us during the day, but the gym was serving us at night. I remember a time in my life where I would go to parties, I would go to barbecues, I would host parties, and there'd be a lot of drinking. When I decided to trade drinking and fun in for fitness, bars were no longer serving me. They were no longer 10 out of 10s. They were no longer aligned. Okay, I don't go to bars anymore. I don't go to clubs anymore. I read books. I go to conferences and things like that. So as soon as I had traded in alcoholic label for bodybuilder, all of a sudden my persons, places, things, and ideas had to evolve as well. Some of the people who were still drinking, nothing against them, I used to do that too. I had to let go of that. I had to let go of those old associations. I had to let go of those old rooms, aka places, the bars and the parties. And instead, what I started doing, and I actually have a client right now, his name's Cam, awesome guy, and he quit drinking too, and he is in the struggle. He's in lonely land. He's at the gym on a Saturday night when all of his friends are partying. But he traded drinking in the old world in for fitness. And I'm super, super proud of him. And every one of you is capable of that too. But it is going to be challenging. Lonely land is lonely. That's why they call it lonely land. But if you can push through that, I mean, I remember Kevin and I, in all honesty, would never have met probably, or re-met, I should say, because we knew each other as kids. But like I was at a party where I was not drinking, I don't believe. Or maybe I was drinking then, actually. But I was into fitness back then. And Kevin noticed that I had a huge physique transformation and I embodied more of what he values. I had a lot of money in the bank. I had a beautiful girlfriend, what seemed like an incredible relationship, and it was. And I had a great physique. And so I had what Kevin valued. I also had time freedom. He was working a job he didn't like back then. If I didn't trade in those old places and spend those nights in the gym when my friends were partying, would I have been able to attract Kevin and him invite me on his podcast? And then would we have ever started this podcast together? And the answer is no. But the question I want you to ask yourself is, okay, what are the persons that are no longer serving my highest self? What are the places that are no longer serving my highest self? That means the bars, the clubs, whatever it is for you. You know, maybe it's going over to that judgmental relative's place who you always leave feeling kind of like crap. Maybe it's that friend who keeps shitting on your dreams and you keep going to their house anyway. Okay? You got to say no to the not aligned stuff if you want to say hell yes to the aligned things.
Alan, so I want to talk about identity, and you talked a little bit about identity. What have some of the identity shifts obviously from alcoholic to, fitness and model and speaker, what are some of the other identity shifts that you've had to make or you've had to let go that weren't serving you?
Hey everybody, this is Matt Kramer coming at you from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Kevin, Alan, and the rest of the NLU team. I have come across them in the last year and honestly can say of all the places and people that I get information from for self-improvement, for operating at peak performance, these guys know how to bring it, and their team knows how to bring it too. All the content they put out, whether it's a podcast, a book club, a quick hit video, their coaching, any of it is just next level, honestly. No pun intended, it is next level. They drop a lot of knowledge bombs no matter what you're doing, and being part of the group coaching has allowed me to really harness the knowledge that they bring to the table. These guys definitely walk the walk and don't just talk the talk, which is the best thing about these guys. You really feel like you get that personalized experience and they know how to bring it.
One I'm still learning how to let go of. So I have this trophy behind me. I was a fitness competitor for a time, and now I'm aspiring to be a business consultant, and I am a business consultant, so I'm not aspiring to be, but I genuinely want to be the very best business consultant that I possibly can be. And to be completely transparent, my intention on this was to be truthful. I want to be the best business consultant that ever lived in history, ever. And that means Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, like whoever. And so I'm struggling with this right now because my dream as a kid was to be a professional gamer and a professional athlete. And I still want my pro card. So I won this show. And for those of you who don't compete in fitness shows, basically what you compete as a novice. And then when you do one show, even if you don't win, you then can compete as amateur. And when you compete as an amateur, you can get your pro card. And so I have a goal, a dream to get my pro card. And to be completely transparent, Kevin and I were just in Florida. We were on the beach, and I'm not in the level of shape that I need to get my pro card. And hey,
samesies.
Yeah, we're not in good enough physical condition to get a pro card. And I'm having trouble with this idea of like, am I going to be able to be this business consultant who masters business every day, finance, business, clients, coaching, consulting, and then also go get my pro card on the side? It's very challenging. So I'm still kind of contemplating how to shift my identity to be a business consultant first, fitness competitor second. And I hope that answers your question.
I think the identity part is like, across the board, I know you've seen this with clients. I've seen this with clients. Identity is one of those things where even the positive parts of your identity can stop serving you. I remember asking Dave, when we interviewed him for the second time, we rented a hotel room in Boston at like the Hilton or whatever it was. And we walked up there and there was 2 beds side by side. And we're like, this is not going to work. Like, what do? We took one of the beds and we stacked it on top of the other bed. We set up a table. I smashed one of the lights. It was this whole thing. But I remember Dave sitting down and I said, Dave, part of my identity, part of who I am as a human is I lack the enoughness. And even though we've gotten like more results and more results and more results, is that ever going to go away? Like, is that lack of feeling good enough? Is that not enoughness ever going to go away? Now, in fairness, that part of me has served me in a lot of ways. Right. It served me in terms of my work ethic and my humility, but there's a fine line where it stops serving you and it starts hurting you. So the point I'm making here is you have an identity, whatever your identity is. And there's parts of it that are amazing and they're really, really lifting you. They're really, really propelling you. There's also parts of your identity that are holding you back, that are not serving you. You have to really get crystal clear on what's what. And again, I'm the never quit kid. Like, I have the tattoo. You can't see it because the camera's zoomed in on my face, but I asked Evan Carmichael the same thing. Like,
you're going to have to get it right on your forehead.
Right on my forehead.
What are your thoughts?
I'm sure I'm in. At some point, when does that resilience become a detriment? Like, when does that part of my identity actually start to hold me back? So that's a question that I have for you if you're out there. What are the positive parts of your identity that really, really, really are serving you at the 10 out of 10 level? But what are the parts that you're thinking and in the back of your mind, look, this is gutting me as far as it's going to get me. It's not going to get me much further than this. What are the parts of your identity that need to go right now? And what are the parts of your identity that you need to start shifting so they can be more empowered and they can really serve you at the deepest level? I have seen this time and time again. I know Alan has also. Like, a lot of what your identity is today is because of the way people talk to you when you were a previous version of yourself. And you start to adopt that. So what identity do you have to shift into and adopt today to get the results you want? What identity will really, really be serving you at the deepest level?
And what identity do you have to get rid of in advance in order to replace it? So the third thing that I have written down here is things. So the first is persons, second is places, third is things. Super simple. An example of a thing, an old thing that I got rid of, I already talked about, and it's alcohol. I remember for the longest time, after 26 years old, when I got in that car accident and I had all that regret, one of the main things that I regretted was basically not maximizing my potential. And one of the reasons I wasn't maximizing my potential was definitely alcohol. I think I was taking my brain for granted. From a very, very young age, I've been very blessed with a very powerful mind, a very powerful brain. And I learned that more and more and more. And again, you got to understand that having gifts is not enough. Cherishing those gifts is wonderful. Every single person out there watching or listening to this has a gift. There's something that comes easy to you that is super hard for me. I guarantee it. And if you don't appreciate that gift enough to develop it, then that's on you. And so I committed after 26 years old to maximize my potential. And I knew that alcohol, again, persons, places, things, this is a thing. Alcohol is a thing. I knew that alcohol had to go if I wanted to maximize this brain and I wanted to maximize my ability to help people. And so I often talk about how it took me 5 years to quit drinking. What I mean by that is I kept falling off. As a matter of fact, that party I talked to you about where I met and talked to Kevin was probably one of the times where I said I wouldn't drink and still drank. There was so many times. I remember there was 2 weddings in particular. I went into these weddings thinking, I'm not going to drink tonight. Not going to drink tonight. And then I ended up drinking, and then 1 turned into 2, 2 turned into 4, 4 turned into 8, and I ended up having a lot of fun, but I ended up regretting it the next day because I broke the promise that I made to myself. Okay, so the thing that had to go for me, and I knew it, was alcohol. I have a client right now who I believe is now 17 days. She writes the day and sends it to me on WhatsApp. I believe she's 17 days sober. And I just talked to her about it, and she basically said, yeah, my highest self, we call it a download, my highest self, I got a download recently, has told me you got to quit drinking if you want to maximize your potential. And I'm like, here's the truth of the matter. You can either do that, or you can keep telling yourself a story that you don't have to do that. But I guarantee you're not going to be fulfilled if you keep getting that same download. And it took me years to listen to that whisper. And remember, the whispers will become a scream eventually. Okay? If you've been getting the whisper, I should be exercising more than I am, and you keep ignoring it, who knows? Something bad could happen. Maybe you'll have a heart attack or something. I don't know. But you got to listen to those whispers. You got to go get quiet and listen to those whispers. I got a whisper for a very long time. My whisper was, Alan, you need to quit drinking alcohol. This is becoming a problem. So I admitted to myself, listen, I have a drinking problem. Okay? And I tell the story about how it took me 5 years to finally quit. And here I am almost 3 years later, because I was 26, I'm 32 now. Almost 3 years later, I haven't had a sip. And so the last time I drank, I'll never forget it. I'm in Westerly, Rhode Island. I had a shot of tequila, big shot of tequila. And then I had a solo cup with tequila, and I think it was orange juice. And I was walking to my car to get my towel. We were on the beach house. And I remember being like, nope. It was dark. I was alone. I'm not doing this anymore. I poured the cup out right next to a fence in the grass there. And then I brought the cup to my car. I grabbed my towel, and that was the last drink I ever had. Persons, places, things. What things, old things, do you have to get rid of if you want the new things? Real, tangible, practical example. Emilia and I, we have a dream. And our dream is to have a home in the mountains on a lake in New England, another home in the southeast on the ocean, and then another home abroad. If I didn't get rid of the old thing, alcohol, would I be able to attract those new things? Would I be able to be the type of person that I am today? The answer is absolutely not. I would not be the man I am today if I didn't get rid of the old thing, aka alcohol. That's me. So what old things do you have to get rid of that are no longer serving your highest self? And again, this is not about Kevin and I, but we have to tell you stories about our life and our experience and our clients' lives and their experience so that you can also do the same.
I think one of the most empowering things, one of the things that serves people at the deepest level that not everybody, I would say a rare amount of people actually get, is when they actually look at the truth and they ask for the truth.
Okay, I'm just going to go to the bathroom real quick.
Yeah, dude, just take off, man.
Awesome.
Take off.
Bring
the burgers over. So Alan and I have somebody in our life that is going through a lot of life changes right now. And this is what happens. Okay. When you realize this thing is not serving me at the highest level, and then you take action on that thing, you get a new level of truth. So back in the day, when I was in this situationship and I let that situationship go, I got a somewhat nasty message from this person because they were mad at me. So I did what I felt was going to serve me at the highest level. I then got a truth that showed me, you know what? You made the right choice. Very difficult, but I got an extra level of truth. So like I said, Alan and I know somebody who's going through a lot of life changes right now. And as she continues to get rid of, or I don't want to say get rid of, distance herself from the people, places, things, ideas, feelings, thoughts that are not serving her at the highest level, those things start to show themselves in their truth. So maybe that person that you thought was serving you at a great level starts to show their truth when you start telling them the truth about how you feel, and they start saying not so nice things about you. Maybe when you stop fitting the mold of what your family wants because you don't feel like they're serving you at the level you want to be served at, you start to see their truth. Maybe your friend group, when you stop going to the bar because that's what they value and it's no longer serving you, maybe you start to see a new truth about them. Maybe they talk about you now behind your back. Oh, you're into fitness, you're into podcasting, you're into speaking. That's never going to work. One of the best things you can do for yourself is to start looking in the mirror and start figuring out your actual truth. And when you take action on that new truth, you're going to get more truth. And when you get that truth, you'll be able to find a way to make that serve you at a deeper level, and you'll get more truth. It's this weird thing about when we're out of alignment. Hold on, we'll go this way. When we're out of alignment, the people, places, things, and ideas that we attract are out of alignment. But when we start to tell our truth, we get more aligned, and we get more aligned, and we get more aligned. And every time you get more aligned, that's a new opportunity to look at a new level of truth. Hardest thing ever, right? Alan, hardest thing ever, looking at that new level of truth. But if you really, really, really want to be empowered, if you really want to find what's serving you, you have to find what's not. And that takes a difficult look in the mirror and then the action associated with that.
Why do you believe that people have so much trouble telling themselves and other people the truth?
We did an episode on that. For me, I think most people struggle with telling other people the truth because they don't want to hurt them. They don't want the reaction. They don't want the confrontation that might come from that truth. And they don't want to preach to people that don't necessarily want the truth. It's easy for you and I when people pay us to give them the truth, right? It's way easier. I think the reason people don't want the truth is because then they have to do something with it. And if you don't believe you're capable of doing something with it, it just becomes a painful reality instead of a possible truth, a possibility. If you believe you can do something with feedback, it can be empowering. If you don't, it can be crippling. It can feel crippling. So I can understand that. I know for a long time, Alan, so Alan and I will be on calls and we'll say, hey, any feedback on the podcast, any feedback on that speech, any feedback on what we could have done better. And I always used to be super scared that people were going to give us negative feedback because I didn't know if I could handle it. But that was because I didn't know what to do with it. I think when you know what to do with it, it's constructive instead of, it doesn't tear you apart as much.
Why didn't you believe you could handle it?
I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know I could use it as something constructive. I also assumed it was like, it was me as a human. I didn't know how to separate the feedback from the human of like, yeah, I've given crappy speeches before. Like, this isn't my best. This isn't a 10 out of 10. This is probably like an 8. You know, Alan and I are trying something new. So there's opportunity for me to Jeff this. So somebody could say like, hey, you Jeff that. And it's like, yeah, I could definitely do better. Back in the day, it would be like the end. It's like, I suck at speaking. I can never speak. So I just think learning how to take something constructive and really do something with it versus thinking it's who you are as a human is super important.
The next one, the fourth thing I have written down is ideas. Total shocker. Surprise ending. No. Persons, places, things, and ideas. Write this down if you're not driving. One idea can change your life, but it's not always for the better. If you want a new life, you have to grab a hold of a new idea. I think this is the least sexy, but the most important. I have a book behind me. It's called The Compound Effect, and I don't get any payment.
You should.
I know, right? I've told, if someone came up to me, oh, I wish I could do this. This is a fantasy of mine. I wish I could find the like 16-year-old Alan and have that person just ask me like, how can I be the most successful version of myself? How can I be the best version of myself? I would literally like take this book and I would just slide it across the table and I would say, there's your operating system. So that's one idea. The compound effect is one idea. The reason I talk about this book so much is because this one book, this one idea, changed my life probably more than any other idea. This morning, it's Emilia's birthday, and so I had kind of a interesting morning because I went to Walmart and Kevin and I was late to recording, all that. But Emilia also took the day off for her birthday, and I'm in the shower and I was listening to a speech by James Clear. It's a 24-minute speech. And it's a video that was compiled by somebody. I think it's the YouTube channel is called Fight Mediocrity. And this is a speech that I, for lack of better phrasing, require of all my clients and the entire NLU team, because I believe it's the most. And I told her this, I was in the shower. She was like, I love this speech. This is amazing. And I said, sweetheart, like through the curtain, I said, in my opinion, this is the most valuable 24 minutes on the internet. The reason I believe that is because the ideas in this speech are, in my opinion, the most valuable ideas in the world. The ideas in this book, in my opinion, are the most valuable ideas in any book. So one of the ideas that James Clear talks about in that speech is called the aggregation of marginal gains. In other words, if you improve by 1% each day in anything for a full year, you'll be 37 times better at the end of the year. You've heard me say this before. I'm going to say it again. Kevin and I, when we got to 600 episodes, he made this amazing transformation photo, and it's broken into thirds. The first third is us at 100 episodes. When our studio was my sister's old bedroom with a terrible backdrop, and we had my sister's an X-ray tech, so we had a skeleton as our mascot, Steve McQueen. Shout out to Steve McQueen, the OG. And then the second third was us in my mother's basement. That was our second studio, 300 episodes in. And then at 600 episodes, it was a photo of us dressed really, really nice in the new studio. And now we've actually done at-home studios. So we'll have to do another transformation photo with all three of those, and then we'll do 700 or something, or maybe 800. But I remember I put it into a financial calculator. I put $1,000 into a financial calculator, and I wanted to see what would happen if it grew by 1% for 600 days. Because I wanted to figure out how much better Kevin and I got if we just got 1% better each episode. Not just better at podcasting, but better men. $387,000. So if Kevin and I got better by 1%, just 1% each time, we were 387 times better. 600 episodes than episode 1. And if you listen to episode 1, it's on my YouTube, you will know that we got 387 times better. But that's the aggregation of marginal gains. So why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because that's the power of one idea. The compound effect and the aggregation of marginal improvements over time. One idea can change your life. There's a flip side to that coin, and apparently we have to go. No, we got to start the Q&A. Oh my God, stop, please. Okay, so there's a flip side to that coin. Here's another idea. I'm not good enough. that one idea can sabotage all of your success. Kevin and I have 750 episodes of what I believe to be really good ideas. And the ideas have definitely gotten better. But one idea, one person, one place, one thing can change your entire life. You have to let go of the old ideas, aka I'm not good enough, I'm shy, I suck, I'm not hardworking, and you have to replace them with new ideas. I am hardworking, I am good enough, I am outgoing, I am whatever it is. So you have to trade in the old person's, places, things, and ideas for the new ones. You have to trade in the old level if you want to get to the next level. There is no other way. And the fifth point I made was everything's a choice. If you're staying in the old ideas, the old persons, the old things, all of that, that's a choice. You're choosing to stay stuck. And I highly recommend you stop that choice.
When Alan and I were coming up with a topic for this week, obviously every week it gets a little harder to come up with a topic because we've done it for however many, 78 weeks before this. But I thought of when I lived in New Hampshire, and back in the day when I lived in New Hampshire, I live in New Hampshire now, and I had my own place and I had my dream car and my dream body and everything seemed amazing. And everybody from the outside looking in would say like, oh, that's amazing. You must have an amazing life. But I never once questioned this. I didn't know what was serving me. I didn't know what was draining me. I didn't know what fulfillment was. So our goal here is to do exactly what Alan just said. It's to introduce a new idea to you that can raise your awareness that you can do something with. I wish somebody asked me like, hey, what's serving you in your life? Because there probably wasn't that much. And that one question could have shifted my entire life. And that's what we're trying to do, is raise your awareness to something new. And then you can do with it what you please. You don't have to do anything with it if you don't want, but it's our job to raise your awareness. And hopefully the podcast is something that serves you. So that is the goal at the end of the day. 7 episodes a week, forever.
Every day.
Every day. All day,
brush your teeth every day. I know you every day.
Every day. Twice a day if you want. If you do it while you brush your teeth. Should we do some questions? Or
yeah, man, for sure.
We can work on that comedy skit we've been doing, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we maybe do Q&A.